Congratulations, Supergirl. You surpassed Disclosure Day. uh, One of the worst movies I have seen this year. Yeah, right on the get-go. I am calling it. Um, and this is me just going blind into the movie with very little knowledge about the movie, the Supergirl, and all this stuff. Well, a little bit, although I don't have too much history about it, but considering the movies that I have seen, I did want to retract a little bit during my Disclosure Day vlog that I was kind of like measuring how higher is gonna be on my worst of the year list, in which we're almost reaching kind of like a half point, and like usual, I am, collecting at least 10 good movies that I wanted to put at the best and 10 for the worst. And I did kind of make a mistake that I was thinking that probably Return to Silent Hill was gonna be on the top of the year, but then suddenly I realized that I did watch something worse, and that was Animal Farm. I think that I kind of forgot because it just went blank out of my mind, I'll say. Usually, and I did say that usually the movies that put me in a foul mood is gonna be the ones that are usually the ones on the top. As for the case of the movie that I just watched, granted, it didn't put me in a foul mood or make me angry or anything. I think I'm mature enough to go past that point and say that I don't want to be, like the typical guy who screams unless I just want to make a fool out of myself or want to be just want to be a clown or something like that, or just for the fun of it. Like I said, I watch movies and make all these vlogs just because it's a hobby. It's a hobby. I don't take things too seriously and all this stuff. I just like watching. I just like watching movies, good movies, bad movies, whatever it is. But still really like to pinpoint where it went right or where it went wrong. Also, usually the things that goes wrong are kind of like the most mesmerizing to try to pinpoint where did it go wrong. And well, in the case of the movie that I watched this time, Supergirl is one of those, and it's a shame that for the moment I'm making this vlog, it really tanked on the box office. It really tanked on the box office. At least as far as I'm talking about it. So it's kind of sad in a way, because I did have a certain respect to James Gunn, considering that he made Guardians of the Galaxy. At least the first one is my favorite. I wasn't too keen on the second one, although the third one also had some bright moments, I'll say. And honestly, I was giving a little bit of a pass to his take on Superman. Don't ask me about Peacemaker, the TV series, because I haven't seen it. And now that I remember, he did also made kind of like them decent Suicide Squad. Although that one kind of I think that it kind of begs a little bit of a rewatch to see if I can cement if it still holds on or not. But as far as him taking over and making the Superman films, I do remember that I was kind of more neutral to the Superman things. There are things that I like. There are some things that felt enjoyable, but on the other side, I did notice a lot of rough and really unpleasant things that I kind of not very, not okay with it. And I did have a second viewing a few months ago, and things didn't went too well. I'll say. Let's say that some of my opinion kind of diminished and I still think that this thing really doesn't work. I still keep holding that introducing the Justice League, the Justice Gang into the introduction to the Superman movie was a big mistake. But now, here we have with Supergirl. I know Supergirl a little bit enough to just as a basic, I'll say, because I'm not exactly kind of like a big DC comic book reader. I just watch kind of like animated series or TV series and sometimes watch the movies, I'll say. And I do agree that Supergirl had what is kind of it really has a little bit of a rough patch when it's about the visual media, I'll say. For example, there is that what was it, the 70s or 80s movie that wanted to take opportunity, the popularity of the Superman movie with Christopher Reeve. And that one came, I think, that right after Superman 3. In which, if you know, this is when the Superman movie was going through a really rough patch, and Superman 3 wasn't well received. It's not a good movie, but I still have a little bit of a guilty pleasure on some corny moment or some, interesting moment, like when Superman, when Superman, battles in his other self, like Clark Kent. Although we had to go through, Richard Pryor being kind of unfunny and also a jerk Superman, which was a little bit like jerk Peter Parker from Spider-Man 3. But I do remember bits and pieces of that Supergirl movie, and I know that it was a colossal failure, both in the box office as well as critical views. And it's been a while since I've seen it by myself, but I can tell you that the movie was pretty silly, I'll say. Really silly. It's really bland on its tone. Kind of a little bit goofy, and even the villain wasn't kind of like remarkable compared to the larger than life General Zod kind of thing. It felt kind of like an obligation, even because I do remember that there was the villain who is just this woman who finds kind of like this magical thing from Krypton, and then she uses it mostly because she's in love with this gardener. And as for the girl who plays Supergirl, let's say that she wasn't, on her worst, but I think that the way they portray her in the movie was kind of like kind of like a little bit too much of an airhead. That's as far as I can remember. But yeah, a lot of things went really wrong with it, and some with the pacing, the storytelling, the stakes. It didn't do well. And then I seen Supergirl, on passing other mediums. A few times, when I glance on a comic book or when she appears on some of the animated series, there's also. I do remember. I do made a little bit of a research, of course, of the things that she done on the comics and her past. Then she tried to appear on The Flash. She wasn't the Flash, but her role was they had a really good actress on it, and she really fit kind of like the role for it. But considering that I'm kind of the kind of person who'll say that the Zack Snyder movies were dead on arrival ever since they tried to go this cinematic universe really fast. It went downhill ever since Batman versus Superman, in which they really wanted to make things fast and all this stuff. I'm aware that there are fans of Zack Snyder because, well, personally, I think it's because they're desperate to see a DC movie on the big screen. Maybe I'm wrong. But that's just me. That's just me. And I was kind of okay with with the decision to reboot the whole thing with and James Gunn. Well, I don't have much of a, how can I say, ill feeling with him. He's kind of making kind of like the same mistakes that Zack Snyder does, and coincidentally or ironically, whatever you want to call it, in his own style, I'll say. And I did give kind of like a Superman a little bit of a pass because the tone is a little bit better compared to the Zack Snyder movie because it's less murkier than the other movies that he was involved, or some other people who were involved. Going back with Supergirl, and I did see also Supergirl, and her role in Injustice 2. That's a video game. I think there was a TV series that I didn't watch. This new and of course, Supergirl makes her cameo on the James Gunn Superman movie, and the first impression that I got is that she basically acted like she was on a robot chicken sketch. All drunk and all that, wearing this cape and all this stuff. I felt it was kind of like awkward, considering that in my head I always thought of her kind of like embodying, just like Superman, fighting for truth, justice, and the American way, but I did hear that this version of Supergirl is actually kind of based on a comic called Women of Tomorrow. I never read it. I just heard about it. So I'm going completely blind on this. So I watched. So be prepared again. That I'm gonna give this kind of like a big spoiler heavy vlog because this movie gave me a lot to talk about on many of the faults that I tried, and trust me, I did kind of like was open-minded because I was thinking that, well, nothing can be worse than, well, Disclosure Day or Animal Farm or Return to Silent Hill, but unfortunately it kind of did. But on the get-go, why this movie failed? Well, mostly because I found this movie frustrating on the tone, specifically, especially for one character in particular that I found it really obnoxious. Some of the writing is not exactly very good. Even the pacing is kind of drags, and some of the plot progression, it feels like just plot conveniences, and the overall look of the movie is also very even murkier, or just as murky as was the Zack Snyder movies that I criticized for looking too murky with kind of like the tone. And this kind of makes me feel like I want to give an apology to the Pixar movie, because I did kind of criticize that when the Pixar movie, they wanted to make it the looks a little bit too realistic, to the point that it makes the tone look a little bit murkier and kind of like it's sad, and that it doesn't bring me the bright joy, the joy that it makes me feel. This is kind of like as you can see, people, this is why it's important to learn about good lighting as well as color theory. Why having different tones of colors work. And I've been criticizing Pixar ever since The Good Dinosaur, and I gave kind of like this criticism of why I didn't feel this kind of joy while watching Toy Story 5, and I want to give Toy Story 5 kind of like an apology, because I on my vlog I did forgot to mention that to give it a little bit more credit to Toy Story 5. I did like the segment of when they begin to imagine how the things go, which it becomes more colorful and joyful, watching the imagination of a kid. I like those. I really like those moments. But now we got here with Supergirl, and you can tell that the movie is not gonna go in a good start when the first image you're gonna get is this Crypto pissing on a newspaper with Superman's face, in which they really want to milk the whole thing that Crypto really hates Superman. So that will give you this thing kind of gives you the first impression of how this movie's gonna go, and funnily enough, I haven't seen any of the trailers. It's kind of weird. Even when I went to the movies, I never seen a trailer of Supergirl. I got trailers of He-Man or Scary Movie 5, or even I had once trailers of Animal Farm, but I don't know why I didn't see any Supergirl trailer. And usually I don't watch trailers on the computer. I try to go there as blind as possible. But anyway, they decided that they want to make Supergirl kind of like this punk girl that with a nihilistic approach to everything. She's dirty. She's go with her dog that she loves a lot. Crypto, and yes, Crypto, instead of a real dog, they use a CGI dog, and that's probably because it's more sanitary than having the scene in which he eats cereal and gives a spoonful to the dog and eats it again, that kind of thing. But the thing is that this Supergirl, it's played by this actress named Millie Alcock, who I don't know anything about her except I've been hearing that she was on a Game of Thrones series, a series that I don't watch. So the thing is that they made this Supergirl who she lives on this planet with two sons. And there's kind of like a yellow sun and a green sun, as far as I can remember. And she basically takes advantage of this because the green sun is basically kryptonite, and with that, this is when she's allowed to drink, and this is how she gets drunk. And she has kind of like this snarky, nihilistic view out of it. And the more I begin to think about it, what we're dealing, Supergirl is basically Rick Sanchez from Rick and Morty. That's how she was going through. Although most of the movie, she acts what will happen if Rick Sanchez was really drunk, really drunk, and I know that for a lot of people, it feels like undignified for a hero that for a couple of people if they feel like it has a lot of respect, like Supergirl. And she's always wearing this big coat that probably she stole it from Star-Lord. Probably because it's still James Gunn, and I've been hearing all the things that they really trying to make her basically the DC version of Star-Lord. So so the whole movie she's just getting drunk because her excuse is that she's celebrating her birthday, and she goes bar hopping, playing getting drunk and playing pop music and rejecting passes from Star Wars aliens. And then we got kind of like the plot in which we see this family that I think they are inspired by Asian Chinese warrior people. And then we see our villain, which is a guy named Krem, played by Matthias Schoenaerts or something like that. And he goes there because he wants the family the family makes weapons, and they make and he just there to make the deal out of it. And they're like, okay, just give him what he wants and he'll go. He just there eats pie, and I'll say that Krem, for some reason, he kind of looks like what will happen if you shoot a lot of needles with a nail gun to his face to Michael Chiklis. And funnily enough, the father, for some reason, he kind of looks like Jared Leto. I don't know why. The father really kind of looks like Jared Leto. But then it's basically they're doing this. There's of course the daughter just looking, and on the other room there is the brother. The brother is listening to music, unaware of the goons outside, and then he sees his sister, and he just decides to sneak in and go, boo! And then everyone, ah! And they shoot that guy, and it's almost like the jackass stunt go wrong, and it gave me kind of like this unintentional laughter. And of course, the parents, they freak out because their son get killed, and they die, and then they leave, leaving the daughter alive for some reason. The daughter is just left there, kind of like catatonic, and for some reason they leave her alive. I don't know, because that plot. And this is where, of course, the plot goes that Supergirl is on another bar, and then this girl comes, and she announced, I'm Inigo Montoya. I am Ruthie. I want to kill this Krem guy. I'm looking for him. I need people to help me out. If you help me out, I'll give you my father's sword. And she talks about honor and all this stuff. And of course, not everyone is interested, except for a few aliens that they say, "Give me the sword and all. Yeah, give me the sword and all this stuff. I'm not gonna help your family." And then, of course, Supergirl, for some reason, she goes there and I think this girl needs the sword. I think she talks with the alien kind of language, and of course the alien say, "No, okay, you asked for it." And then she beats him up with a pole with the girl watching, and she's like, "Wow, so cool. Hey, help me out. Help me bring honor to my family by taking my revenge." No. I don't want that. I don't want anyone to junk and all this stuff. I'm serious. The whole movie is Supergirl really, really drunk, and then she goes to this to her trailer, where Crypto is, and her really, really messy room. That kind of reminds me that she didn't even clean up, where Crypto take a piss. And by the way, yeah, Crypto is still kind of like wanting to make him the bad dog kind of thing that they find it kind of want to kind of charming, but yeah, the CGI looks the design wants them to make him cute, but now I don't think that it's kind of work because, like I said, sometimes our minds can tell when something is fake and it's gonna be hard when it's made kind of like CGI. And of course, later this Ruthie girl, the little girl, she apparently somehow reaches the trailer. And by the way, I got opinions about the design of that trailer. Not gonna go too much into detail. And she's like, but you're powerful. I think you can do good or something like that. We have to make revenge. And Supergirl is like, no, I don't want to. And if you excuse me, I'm gonna take a pee. No, seriously. The movie actually has a pan in which we see Supergirl go to the bathroom and with an open door, sitting on the toilet to take a pee. This is why I'm telling you that she's basically Rick Sanchez when he is drunk. Take it as you will. I'm not gonna go too much into discussion, but yeah, then they go outside and apparently Crypto wants to, hey, help out this little girl that we barely know. And of course, the bad guys and even Krem just comes in because I don't remember what they wanted. It's kind of forgetful, but Crypto wants to save the trailer, but then Krem shoots him with a poison made of kryptonite, apparently. And of course, they escape because, well, apparently Supergirl kind of doesn't use her powers at the exact moment. And I mean, I don't exactly kind of remember because is this probably because of the sun or because she just wants to hide and that thinks that she doesn't need to help people. And also, on a side note, she gets kind of calls from Superman, and Superman really wants to try, trying to motivate her to do things for herself and all this stuff, but she's like, freak off, and she turns him down and all this stuff, and then this little girl comes saying that she needs to do good and all that stuff. She even sees, that the Supergirl's costume, kind of lying over there. And okay, back to the plot is that Crypto is poisoned. They send him to a doctor, and the doctor said that Crypto cannot move or the poison will spread, and it needs an antidote, or else it's gonna die in 3 days. So Supergirl is like, okay, this guy has the antidote, so I'm gonna go grab him. I'm gonna put on this stopwatch that he has, and the little girl is like, hey, now the two can get revenge on him. No. I'm gonna get the antidote for the guy. You're not going on your revenge. So stay where you are. And then she decides to go ride the bus. And when she gets in the bus, which is full of, all quirky people, including a mini Seth Rogen voice alien. And then this little girl follows her, going like, I am here. I don't need to pay the bus. I'm gonna, so I'm following her. And Supergirl's like, okay, you can follow me and all this stuff, even though I told you I didn't do it. This is where I am, at this point, this is where I did realize where my frustration of the movie came from. And that is Eve Ridley, Ruthie. That little girl was really obnoxious. So obnoxious. She has kind of like this high and mighty attitude, holier than you kind of attitude that makes this character even kind of like even more unlikable than Supergirl herself. And granted, Millie Alcock is not a, she's not she doesn't seem like a bad actress. She doesn't seem like a bad actress. It's just a bad material that it was given, and she tries but doesn't give too much. But Eve Ridley herself, she doesn't escape, and I am the kind of guy who can go harsh, especially even when you have even for child actors, which being a child actor who doesn't excuse their because there is a they still have to take the blunt of acting, I'll say, and if they don't do a good job well enough to give an impact, you have to tell them bluntly, you didn't do good. And she doesn't. Not only her, because again, her personality and how she was written, but the way her tonal voice, they really kind of, she really has kind of like this thick British accent that kind of sound like one of those, spoiled brats from Britain, and the tone that it gives her, always angry, that always want to lecture you, and it doesn't help that during her acting is really stiff. For the majority of the movie, she's just standing there, stiff, straight, not moving her arms or just laying around or something like that. She doesn't have acting capabilities. Or any other direction. She's just kind of like just her arms like this. And the only way you can give her some movement is if someone, grab or touch her, something like that. even the way she holds the sword is undynamic, doesn't have dynamic. I think she holds the sword mostly like this or like this, almost like yeah, and the sword is kind of small, even for a child to grab it. So the sword almost feels like it has no weight. And since we are now kind of following this movie in which this girl follows Supergirl, in which she wants to try to see the best of her, but there's almost nothing about her, and she just follows her and almost like a parasite. And the funny thing is that I gotta confess that this is the second time I'm making this vlog about Supergirl, because I gotta admit that while watching my first vlog, I was a little bit too mean-spirited, I'll say. But there's no excuse on having this character going around and the more the movie went on, this character became more and more obnoxious, and to the point that you kind of think that Supergirl was kind of right on leaving her. And now we're back to the bus in which they get invaded by these pirate girls, and this little girl apparently wanted to draw her sword without realizing that if you make some kind of let's say that it's not clever to bring a fight on a crammed bus where civilians are. Of course, that Supergirl is like, no, you know what? Give me the sword. I'll give them the watch. I have a plan. And of course, the plan is that she fights them. They get kind of like teleporting things, that she even get teleported by an alien that is probably the cousin of Jabba the Hutt. And then, of course, she tries to put in a spaceship, but she gets thrown on the airlock, and then the sun miraculous comes, and she gets her powers, and she beats the woman, and she interrogates them by telling them that they come from the same people that this guy named Krem comes from, which is called the Brigands. And they go to a pit stop where we get to see Popcorn popcorn that made by the feces of this alien that poops it out. I'm telling you, this is straight from a Rick and Morty or Futurama kind of thing. And of course Supergirl is like trying to go around trying to find the brigands because Krem, the leader, has the antidote for crypto. But the little girl is like, we'll do it. Come on, we'll do it together. I see you have those powers. You're so cool and all this stuff. And there's this guy named Superman, but I don't give a frick. He's the one who's cool. They go to another bar. They meet some aliens from again. I'm pretty sure that one of them looks like Greedo from Star Wars. And then of course they try to play it out that okay, they wanted the little girl, and because apparently the brigands. Then they mentioned that the brigands, they're basically kind of like this Mad Max kind of style of aliens that they kidnap little girls in order to raise them as brides, in order to make children, but only male children. I don't know what happened to the little girls, but it's again going back that there's this episode of Rick and Morty, which is kind of like the opposite about this society of women who get rid of the boys because they're monsters and all this stuff. And after a fight scene, then we get to see Lobo. Yep, we got Lobo. And he's played by Jason Momoa. Right on the get-go, I was getting kind of bored by this movie's murky tone. The whole getting drunk kind of thing, in which it could have worked, but the script kind of felt something like off. And of course, I was more annoyed by the little girl. Seriously having a little problem with these kind of characters. But if there's a little bit of a silver lining that I could give to this movie, at least one small positive apart from this movie, is that Jason Momoa as Lobo is kind of like the most entertaining I can see from the character. And although it's not saying much because the character doesn't have too much of a presence on the movie, it's just kind of there, and the reason why we get entertained by it is because Lobo himself is, of course, kind of like one of those established kind of like badass kind of characters that he's rude, he's selfish, but something charming about it. And the movie, and apparently they know that, and Jason Momoa really kind of gives his best about it, in which this kind of serves a little bit of as an apology for him playing a creep on Minecraft. I'm sorry, Jason Momoa, but you were a creep on that movie. But I know that there's a bigger creep on that one. Sorry about that. I don't want to go back to that, and you know who I'm talking to. But he's just there on the movie because Lobo is also trying to look for Krem. He's trying to look for Krem, in which, and he's only there for money. We get kind of like exposition about what he is and all this stuff, and then we go to, and of course Supergirl and the annoying girl go into a room, and the little girl is like, hey, so what's the deal with you and Superman, and also where do you come from, why are you like that, and all this stuff. And we get this backstory in which Krypton gets destroyed, and before Supergirl, her real name Kara-El, her family and other Kryptonians, they do they put in a force field in order to protect a piece of Krypton, and it floats around when Krypton gets destroyed. Of course, we get a snippet of the spaceship that brings Superman to Earth. And by the way, the movie made also the controversial insistence that the Kryptonians are actually a conquering species, that they like from the last Superman, that everyone is like, whoa, what the frick? In which, of course, they wanted to say that Kal-El and his wife, Kal-El is Superman. Getting mixed up, by the way. But basically, Superman's parents, they say that, hey, you're a conquering species and you're here, to take the woman and all this stuff. And you know that this is kind of a little bit of a bad taste, for Superman. And I was, but in my mind, it's like, that they have something similar and they could have worked better on that. I mean, James Gunn still insists that Superman is Brightburn. People, at this point, I prefer watch Brightburn. Brightburn, it might not be everyone's taste, but at least Brightburn, it was creative enough to be its own thing, and yeah, it's a deconstruction of what will happen if Superman was evil, but. Well, they do it a lot of time, but Brightburn is being Superman without being Superman. But I still want to watch that movie again, and I do have kind of like high respects to that one. But continuing on with Supergirl, Kara is born, and she lives a happy life on the remains of Krypton, but unfortunately, the soil is radiated with kryptonite, and everyone starts dying like it is the bubonic plague, even the mother. So the father and the mother is like, Kara, we want to save you. You don't need this. You don't have to suffer from this life. So we construct this spaceship using the blueprints that my brother gave you. So you can go to Earth, see your cousin, and then live a happy life. But she's like, no, I want to stay. Too late. Your mother's dead. You take this dog for Crypto, who was roaming from on the garbage, and then they send her to Earth with by saying her, you have to be good or something like that. But despite that, she reaches Earth. Superman, acting like a total buffoon. He's like, "Hey, welcome to Earth. Oh, you don't speak my language. Okay, I'm gonna keep on talking English. And hey, is that your dog? Oh, your dog doesn't like me. Okay, fine. I'll keep on talking in English. I want to give you my hospitality and all this stuff. And your power is you're gonna feel those powers right now." And then the flashback then ends, and Supergirl is like, well, he's like, Dad, I don't know about my cousin and all this stuff. And this kind of diminished her character a lot, because the movie doesn't even give kind of like a reason why she's like that. I mean, at least for Rick and Morty, Rick has a nihilistic vision because he's practically a genius. Everyone starts to follow him. He has his backstory with his wife, his daughter, and everyone about it. And so Rick Sanchez does even has a reason to why he's very nihilistic and drunk. But Supergirl, they don't give us kind of like much of an excuse of why she's like that. She just had a happy life. The parents, out of love, they sent her over there. Maybe because she felt too attached about it, and she's beginning kind of saying that she hates Earth, but doesn't give enough of a reason of why she hated. And not even kind of like a reason exactly about why she basically hates her cousin Superman. Superman. the biggest reason that she gave is that Superman wants to see the good on people. I see the truth. Yeah, there's a very kind of like a defeatist, bitter tone about it, and that they wanted to make her really kind of like an anti-hero. It could have worked, but I think the movie doesn't give enough of a reason of why she has kind of like this kind of like this defeatist attitude on almost everything, and even the movie doesn't give kind of like an excuse to have some care of charisma toward a little girl that she barely knows and kind of feels like she has almost no interest on saving. And the movie kind of gives excuse by saying that she has to defeat to defeat protect the people that need help. But this little girl, again, I'm going with the little girl. She basically just goes around claiming that she wants to have revenge on almost everybody, and she looks a little bit too tough to the point that she doesn't feel defenseless. So I do have kind of like that problem with that. But okay, then of course we in the bar, Supergirl just decides to go down to see the family that owns the bar. She realized that the couple has a little girl who was captured by the brigands and all this stuff, and after she takes a drink, she realizes that it was poison. And of course, it's because the parent is like, well, we made a deal. We give you 2 girls and they'll give us our girls. And then they take pity on her. It's like, where is it? I need milk. Okay, here's milk that comes from the bar, puppy or something like that. Then the bad guys come. We get kind of like this fighting scene with Supergirl, of course, drinking her milk, trying herself to vomit the poison. And after she does that, we get kind of like this fight scene, and then we go outside, and I gotta mention also that how the editing feels a little bit choppy, and because of the lack of proper lighting and good direction that this movie has, some of the moments feel really confusing. Because then we go to kind of like in the sky, in which apparently this is where they keep those little girls, and Lobo basically cut the strings of the cargo, and all these things go boom, boom, boom. And the girls are okay. Let's ignore about the crushing gravity that it went through. And also, I want to mention that it is basically typically of James Gunn putting these 80s music, 90s music, and boy, that most of them really feel forgettable. This is something kind of like a cop-out on many movies that they try to imitate it. As much as I didn't like Master of the Universe, at least I will say that they did pick up some kind of music that at least kept on my head, I'll say. Now I remember, they picked the music from Highlander, Here We Are, something like that. That one, no, even the music is kind of forgettable. But anyway, we get this fight scene with Lobo tagging along, and even the little girl, Supergirl is like, you, stay there, don't move an inch. But then the little girl, she sees the daughter of the couple going through somewhere. And then I think it was Cram, or it was one of those guys. That's how forgettable the villain is, because he has kind of like no impact even on his costume design. And the little girl is like, "This is my chance. I'm gonna go follow him and kill him." But Supergirl told you that no. I'm an honorable woman, so I'm gonna save her. So we get this fight. They kind of have this long fight scene, and then Supergirl kind of realized, hey, where's the little girl? Here's the little girl. And the little girl, she was about to stab this guy on the back. But then Supergirl stops her. She stops her. And of course, in consequences, the little girl and the parents are killed. And then, of course, Supergirl's like, what happened? And the little girl, she really has her high and mighty attitude. And she's like, you couldn't save her. You should have done it right. Why you stop me? Because you're gonna regret it when you take revenge. Revenge. I don't care. I'm already broken. I wanna have my revenge. I don't know. But you didn't let me, and now these 3 people are killed because of you. It's kind of like this little girl kind of scolding, in which kind of makes this character much even more unsympathetic than Supergirl herself. And then, of course, Supergirl just flies to the sky, and then she screams, which I think it is probably the loudest profanity I ever heard. And then she goes to the, the things are so choppy that then she goes kind of like to the bar to get to Battle Creme, and then because of the suns, she gets weakened, and then she gets dropped into the planet on desert, and into the desert of the planet with the green sun. And then somehow the little girl, despite saying that she hates her and all this stuff, she decides to tag along for no reason. And she saves Supergirl. And she puts them, where the radiation of the green sun doesn't get her. And she's like, I'm sorry that I yell at you. I'm sorry that I yell at, because I think you're a good woman. For what moment? A few minutes ago, you yell at her. Saying that she has no honor and all this stuff. And now you just came her out, almost like a drop of a needle. You change your mind. Change your mind. And we didn't even kind of like a scene of her, having kind of like second thoughts or something like that. So she goes get some water, and then she gets captured by the villains. She's on jail, and for some reason Lobo is there, taking a nap, and she berates Lobo, saying that he should be a good guy. You'll be kind of like, shut the frick up, little girl. And to make her even more annoying, instead of being the big bad guy, he's like, hey, I got your sword, your parents didn't do anything, and then for some reason, she spits on his face, and instead of the guy shooting her, she's like, you'll regret this, we'll execute you later. Why don't you do it now? There was almost like no reason. The movie doesn't show kind of like a reason why she can't be executed now. Probably because he needed, because of all the brides that the Mad Max bride kind of thing. But now that I think about it, why didn't he capture her? When he first saw her, during her introduction. That's how kind of scatterbrained this whole thing is. So, you think that she couldn't be even more annoying? She kind of gets this plan in which she's like, I don't want to die, something like that. And that annoys the guards enough for them to stupidly open the door, and despite putting her, shackled, she just makes her ninja moves in order to break the neck of the guy. And Lobo's like, bravo, my plan kind of worked. I wonder if it was his plan or something like that. And besides, if that little girl actually had moved, why didn't she show it before? So she freed Lobo, and she decides, to kill Krem, but unfortunately she gets captured again. And at the same time, Supergirl, she's basically kind of dying, remembering her parents saying that you have to do good. I don't know why. And then she sees that the little girl actually for some reason leave her the Supergirl costume, and that's when she said like, okay, fine, I'm gonna put it. She puts the Supergirl costume, and of course fight the bad guys alongside Lobo. She getting and this I would say that Lobo is mostly kind of like used as a plot convenience about saving on close calls and all this stuff. We get kind of like this action scene in which I can see why certain people kind of supporting the movie, but mostly because this is the closest thing to a Zack Snyder movie, I would say, because it has all these slow motion shots, I'll say, and Supergirl movie quick here and there and all this stuff. This is a very, it doesn't feel like a James Gunn directed movie, but more like a Zack Snyder movie. And of course, we get shots of the little girl getting in danger, and when she's not in danger, she's just standing there like a stiff, with her arms and something like that. And of course, Lobo's doing whatever. And then of course, Supergirl finally, defeat the bad guy, and Krem is on the floor, and the little girl, she raises the gun. The sword, and she's about to stab him, and Supergirl is like, no, wait, it's not worth it. You're gonna regret it. But you killed my family. It's for the honor. No, you're a good girl. I know that, and when you do that, you're gonna regret it. I know you're gonna regret it. So, turn around. Don't look back. And the little girl is like, okay, I'm not gonna do it. And she just walks away. And of course, Krem is like, you think that's gonna make me change my mind or something like that? You think that and then Supergirl is like, okay, I know you're a bad guy, but hear me out. Okay, but for first, is she gone? She's gone. I can't see her. Okay, she's gone. Okay. This is for my dog! Yeah! And this is for her family! Yeah! Supergirl kills Krem with the sword that she left. She kills the bad guy after all that speech that revenge is bad, and the revenge is bad, and she's like, if you're going to the revenge plot, at least go out of the way and don't give me, this fortune cookie thing that revenge is bad, it's gonna poison your soul and all these things. Was it because they thought that the hero, she's not a hero, and because, well, they don't want an innocent little girl going through with her, and because they kind of aware that Supergirl is such a bad woman that killing someone is not gonna make her any better or something like that. God, I don't know if this is as bad as in Man of Steel when Superman snaps Zod's neck. But in this case, I think it's a little bit worse because it kind of shows this movement was a little bit hypocritical. And this whole revenge plot that they imposed to Ruthie, this little girl, it's not even well constructed or well, how can I say, it's not so well constructed to invest to either support her revenge or not go through with it. I think, and you know what, I seen even lamer, stories about saying that revenge is bad and all this stuff. For example, one of the revenge is bad excuses that didn't do well, it was from what was it? The Purge 2, the second Purge movie. That one didn't do well with the revenge plot. Even though this one is a little bit of a guilty pleasure for me because of the actor playing playing their hero in this one. Or if or in the case that if you want to kind of like a revenge plot to say that revenge is not worth it, made in a good way. Take for example Avatar: The Last Airbender when Katara goes on a quest to find her mother's killer, and when she finds the opportunity, she finds that well the killer is kind of regretful for what he has done. He's basically now washed up, but he's still trying to make up for his own misdeeds by raising his own family and all that stuff. And so Zuko said that well, this guy looks repentant and it's not worth it. It's not worth it. This is a revenge plot of saying revenge is not worth it done right. Although there are times in which revenge is kind of well justified in some kind of people, depending on how it is. I mean, this is one of the reasons why I didn't like Master of the Universe when He-Man tried to find some peaceful solution to Skeletor when Skeletor basically killed off a lot of people. Or when revenge is justified, like in Octopath Traveler 2, when we have our main character who basically finds out that the one who ruined his life is actually a monster. It's a monster that he has a lot of spite on him, and then steal his daughter and goes for something really dark, I'll say. So this is when there's kind of like the two sides of the coins about when you can justify the revenge. But in this case, doesn't feel earned. Doesn't feel earned with the whole thing. So yeah, Supergirl kills off the guy, then grabs the antidote that the whole time was on his on a pendant on his chest, and then gives it to Crypto, in which Crypto kind of feels kind of forgotten into this movie. I mean, it's funny how I've seen promotions of the movie and Crypto is almost all there, but he barely did anything. He was during the whole movie kind of poisoned. And then of course, with the somehow the little girl is there, and then she's like, and then Supergirl is like, okay, what are you gonna do? I'm sorry that I'm giving her kind of like this Jack Sparrow kind of accent, but it is the way to make it sound a little bit funny. Blame it on me. The little girl is like, well, revenge has been served. Well, kinda. So, what are you gonna do? I'm still not finished celebrating my birthday, so... you know what? Come here, let's celebrate together. And she's like, I'm probably 13 years old, but yeah, let's go. They get on the trailer to celebrate. And then we get the epilogue in which Supergirl goes to Earth. She sees Superman, and Superman is like, well, how did it go? Doing stuff and all this stuff. I brought Crypto, by the way. Even though Crypto hates you, I'm drunk. I don't know. Oh, okay. Maybe I should scold you more like a responsible older cousin, who was almost your surrogate father while you are here on Earth. But okay, I'm listening. Maybe I'm gonna give Earth a try. Oh, that's nice for you. And hey, wait, Crypto, don't eat the chocolate. The end. Guys, I'm sorry for this sudden cut or whatever I'm gonna put this video. Is that after I finished recording, I forgot to mention something a little bit important about how this movie feel. Kind of like not many people were not interested, because I was kind of surprised that since the movie was known to at the moment I'm talking about this vlog, it's considered a flop. It only it didn't make up this budget. In my head I thought that it was gonna be at least successful, because when I went to see the movie in the movie theater, the house was packed. There were a lot of people, and unlike a few movies that I've seen this year, like Disclosure Day, Mortal Kombat 2, and Animal Farm, where I legitimately see people walk off. This case, I didn't notice anyone walk out of the movie theater in frustration. Maybe because there were a lot of people, but the audience, I will tell you that they only kind of gave some kind of like one or two awkward chuckles when they give kind of like these lame references that the jokes doesn't even land. Because I think one of them is when Supergirl makes a Titanic joke, and the people were kind of laughing, and I was like, what was the joke? I didn't even understand the joke or the punchline. And I think the second one is when she calls one of the aliens, "Hey Squidward," which kind of also tell that when the movie tries to try hard on their humor, it really falls flat, because it tries to be a little bit too referential, and in which it kind of feels out of place. And I know that I've seen these kind of jokes, try hard jokes, even in Rick and Morty, but something about the timing that kind of like doesn't feel well. And even in Rick and Morty, when they try at least referential humor, there are kind of like 55% of the time that doesn't work. But I will also say that when apart from these two moments of chuckles, the whole audience was stiff, silent. Crickets can only be heard, and nothing. And even on the most terrible movie I have seen that has standing ovations or something like that, you can see one of those chuckles going, hey, they enjoy the movie for what it is, good for them, and all this stuff. Not this time. When the movie ended, no one applauded. But the funny thing that happened is that, considering that this is a superhero movie, now a lot of people are now used to that. There is going to be post-credit scenes that is going to tease up the next movie. But then I don't know if it was someone from the movie theater staff or someone from the audience. During the middle of the credits, someone goes, "Hey, there's no post-credit scenes," and everyone like, and then everybody begins to stand up and leave. Maybe because the guy, I don't know if the guy was frustrated that the movie was so bad, they say that there is no point just staying to watch post-credit scenes, or because there isn't, or it was one of the movie staff saying that I want to clean them up as fast as possible, so let's go. Everybody just stand up and leave it. I didn't stand up. I stayed all the way through the credit scene, during the credit scene, because I decided to take the approach that I learned from Japan, that nobody stands up after the credits roll, because, well, it's kind of like a common courtesy to watch a movie all the way. And of course, cleaning up your space also included. But after I remember that I was the only guy standing in the on the movie theater when everybody leave. not all the time happen because I little by little I've been seeing people staying even up to the end of the credit, but not this time. After that guy just said that, everybody leave. Okay, so yeah, that was basically the whole Supergirl movie. The little girl is the one that frustrates me the most about the movie, and the whole thing was really boring. And I must say, in a way, and the way the script is really choppy, nonsensical. It's kind of coincidental or ironic to see that we now live in a world where we have two bad Supergirl movies, and both of them kind of like in a different spectrum. One tries a little bit too hard on being kind of it was too silly or too nonsensical. The script wasn't exactly very good on that one. Well, the other one is kind of like the opposite spectrum, but in the same boat. That one is more kind of like nihilistic and kind of like Dollhouse. So in ways, yeah. Unfortunately, this kind of tops as one of the worst movies I have seen. I'm still, even right now, I am kind of putting on the balance if I dislike Supergirl or Disclosure Day, and which it is coincidental because both movies there are made by respected directors. One was James Gunn and the other one is Steven Spielberg, and it was like, what in the world happened? What in the world happened? I'm not gonna criticize too much by saying that it couldn't have been done, and kind of like a drunk Supergirl. Maybe it could have worked a little. Could have worked even as an experiment or a parody, but something doesn't it feel like add up, and it kind of diminishes the charm, and it makes this a pretty uncharismatic movie. And and again, I criticize more the kind of like the little girl, in which they could have given the character a little bit more of a chipper. If you wanted to, going that she's kind of like honor bound and chipper and all of this stuff, make her kind of like having a more stronger delivery of her lines, and make her less stiff and less judgmental on her character, and also make this character also go through the lessons, make the movie earn the lesson, but it doesn't feel like it, and you can tell that this movie had a rough moment on going on the script. I mean, I did read that before the movie came out, I think like 2 weeks ago, they did have to cut like 24 minutes of this movie. And in some parts, I could see where the choppiness happened. And if those 24 minutes could have saved the movie, I have absolutely no idea. Yeah, no idea. This was basically a movie that kind of felt like a robot chicken Rick and Morty kind of script. Script. So I didn't like it. If you like it, it's none of my business. It's none of my business. You can judge it for what it is. But still, the numbers in this case kind of doesn't lie, because, well, it's from the moment I'm talking, yeah, it's tanking. It's tanking. I don't know how much more it's gonna get in the next couple of weeks, but unfortunately, I found this movie super boring, super lame, super badly written, and I'm gonna need a super drink.